I'm Andrew Quinn, the Daily Record's Westminster reporter, and I'm joined today by Christine Jardine, the Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West. So we're in the House of Commons here, and we've just had Prime Minister's questions. How did it go, Christine, today?
I felt it was a bit flat today because it wasn't Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. It was Angela Rayner and Oliver Dowden, and they're both very good performers, but it's very different. And I think you could see from the fact that there wasn't the full attendance and packed benches that you normally have for PMQs. But also there was a feel about the last real opportunity to get issues out there before next week's council elections in England. It was very much MPs trying to get a mention for their council or their police commissioner who's up for re-election. So, which was a bit of a surprise considering all the big issues that are about at the moment.
And so what big issues do you think they were missing out on then?
Well, I think I would have liked to hear more about what the Prime Minister was saying in Germany, although we have now had a statement from the Defence Secretary. I'd have liked to have heard a bit more about that, a bit more about why the government is so concerned and just exactly how they're going to spend this extra defence spending, because we do need, we've been saying for years, we do need investment in more troops, more and better defences. So I would have liked to have heard a bit more about that.
And Angela Rayner went quite a lot on housing now. I know that's...
I was very brave of her.
Yeah, given her current situation. What did you make of that?
Not a lot, to be absolutely honest. It's not something that I've been paying an awful lot of attention to, because there are so many problems in this country. Now, politicians do have to be as above reproach as we possibly can be, but we have so many problems in this country. We have an NHS that is on its knees. The staff must be exhausted after the past few years they've had. Our education system, particularly in Scotland, is under growing stress. We have, as the Prime Minister has been saying this last couple of days, we have a defence situation where everyone is very tense about the potential for an outbreak of regional war in the Middle East, and we have the situation in Ukraine becoming ever more serious, and we have Rwanda, the bill which was passed this week, which is going to be just expensive and unworkable. So many things that we need to be addressing at the moment that I really would have liked to have heard more. But having said that, housing for me is a big issue, because in Edinburgh we have a housing crisis. Every week I have people who come to me who have a very good case for a new house, a bigger house, a different house, or who are homeless. And the council are doing their best, but they don't have the money they need from the Scottish Government. There's no investment in housing. Now, you're going to tell me they're building thousands of houses in Edinburgh West. Yes, they are. But they're not affordable houses. Most of them are 4-bedroom houses. A lot of them are out with the reach of people who are trying to get on the housing ladder or to find a slightly bigger house because they've now got 3 children rather than 2, or 2 children rather than 1. And we're not building the houses that people need. And that's what we should be, for me, those are the things we should be focusing on.
And we also saw a bit of a personal attack, Angela Rayner calling Rishi Sunak a pint-sized loser. What do you think of that? Do you think it's just a bit of fun in Prime Minister's questions?
No, I mean, the thing that gets me about it is you cannot say that sort of thing and then complain if people say that sort of thing about you. And it just brings the whole thing down. It's all very well to make jokes. I'm the very first one to say it. I don't have a problem with you taking a rise out of people, taking a mickey out of them. That's fine. But when he's not there, and to make that sort of jibe, you just think, oh, come on, can we, we've got serious things to talk about. And there's lots of criticisms that can be thrown at Rishi Sunak. And there's lots of things we need him to do. But I'm afraid his height is not one of the things that he can do anything about.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned the Middle East earlier about how serious it is. That was raised by SNP Deputy Leader Mary Black during Prime Minister's questions. What did you think of that? She was talking about reports that there's been mass graves at hospitals in Gaza. Do you think it was an important issue to be bringing up?
I think it's a worry, and I think we do need to investigate it. I don't think we should jump to any conclusions. Anytime a mass grave or something like that is found, we need to investigate. We need to make sure that we know what has happened. And we've seen in Gaza already during this dispute jumping to a conclusion about what has happened and then having to pedal back because it turns out that we didn't have the evidence. So what we need to do is get all the evidence and find out just exactly why these graves are there, who's responsible for them. It sounds horrific, and we need to investigate whether there have been human rights abuses. But let's do it properly. Let's take our time, get the evidence and do it properly.
And you also mentioned Rwanda. That's something else which has been going on this week. You were in here late on Monday night.
We're always in here late on Monday night.
Well, but I guess later than usual. Yeah. What have you made of the whole process? It's probably, the Rwanda bill's probably going to become law pretty soon. So what have you made of this?
The whole thing's just a debacle. I mean, it's a bill that I don't see how it's workable. You know, there are members of the Conservative Party who don't see how it can be workable. I didn't think I would ever be on the same side of this argument as Suella Braverman, and I'm not on the same side, but she makes the same point as I do. It's unworkable. And I think to be putting all those hundreds of millions of pounds into this scheme, which is unworkable, it's expensive, it's immoral, to be putting all that money in there when our NHS and our education system, our public services generally, our roads are a mess, putting all the money into that when it's not going to solve the problem. And, we need more GPs. The money is going, for me, to the wrong place. It should be going to help people in this country. Now, you're going to say it's a problem. Yes, the small boats are a problem. Yes, we need to do something about it. We need a solution. But this Rwanda bill isn't it. Apart from anything else, one of the news, TV news outlets went and asked the people in the camps in France what they thought about it, and they all knew about the Rwanda scheme, but it wasn't going to put them off. So I think the government have got it wrong, and what we're going to end up is an expensive policy that doesn't work.
And thinking back to Scotland, now there's obviously there's been a bit of back and forth between the SNP and the Greens this week. Some debate over whether the Butte House Agreement, which is their power sharing arrangement that they've got, is going to collapse. What do you think of that? Do you think the Butte House Agreement should continue? I know obviously you're an MP and not an MSP, but what do you think?
Well, frankly, at the moment it just seems that the SNP and the Greens are trying to outdo one another for incompetence and running away from the principles. Hamza Yousaf criticised Rishi Sunak and he criticised the Labour Party for rowing back on the principles in climate change. His government, under Nicola Sturgeon, declared a climate emergency, and now they've just abandoned the targets. So, for me, it's a case of, well, if you don't like those principles, give me 10 minutes, I'll come up with another one. Are they going to address it or not? Now, for Patrick Harvey now to start saying, oh, well, I'll step down. No, you're there to do a job, do it. Get on with it. And don't just abandon your policies and go off and do something else. The people of Scotland are getting, I find from speaking to them on a regular basis on doorsteps and when I'm out shopping in Edinburgh West, the people in Scotland are fed up with this government's incompetence. Come up with a law, which on the surface of it looks like a good idea, then come up with some badly framed legislation, make a complete dog's breakfast of it, and then look for somebody else to blame. And it's time that they just got a grip and accepted that this is what they said they would do and stick by it. Otherwise, I think the electorate will have something to say about it.
And you've got some important business going on here in Westminster later this week. Can you tell us a bit about
there's a couple of things that I'm pushing particularly hard on at the moment. One is to make sure that people who find themselves in trouble abroad know where to get support from the British Consulate, and that the British Consulate has to do it. Because at the moment, for people like Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, it's all about the discretion of the consulate, what they're prepared to do. But I like to think that if I or any of my constituents got into trouble abroad, or maybe we have about 5,000 cases a year of people just being detained without trial and they don't know what they've done wrong, and that's where you need the fact that the words inside your passport promise you security and safe passage. You need somebody to stand up for that. You need somebody to make sure you get it. And at the moment we don't have that. You have to fight for it. Your MP has to be able to know that the right people in government to speak to. You have to get publicity in the press. That's not good enough. They should be guaranteed the support They should have their human rights protected, legal advice, medical help if they need it, visitation rights for their families and all the rest of it, and they don't have that at the moment. So that I'm talking to the Foreign Office about and trying to make sure that we improve that. The other one, and this is, in a way, this is very personal. I know what it's like to lose a parent at a young age. I wasn't very old, but my sisters were 13 and 8. And I see, we didn't get any help or support from social services. Schools, great. But because we'd never gone across social services radar, there was nothing. And yet there are organisations out there desperate to help children who have people who've been through that experience of losing a parent or a grandparent or a sibling. So what I'm trying to do is put the two together and come up with a process whereby if you lose a close relative, then when that person's death is registered, there is some way of also recording that there are children or young people who are going to be affected by it, and making sure that they know where to go for help or support. The schools are great, the GPs are great, but they're not with you 24/7. They're not with you at weekends or in the school holidays or at Christmas. The times when you perhaps miss that parent or sibling or grandparent most. And that's why these specialists who are there to offer support, charitable organisations like Winston's Wish, you should know where to get them, and they should know how to reach you and offer you support.
So you will be raising private members' bills on both of these subjects?
Both of these things. I've spoken, we've had various debates on both of them, and I know that there are ministers who support particularly the child bereavement one. Every single time we've mentioned it in a debate or brought it up with the Leader of the House, everybody said, that's a great idea, we need to do that. But it's kind of like having to bang departments' heads together to come up with a solution. They say, well, we've got the schools. Yes, we've got the schools, but like I said, they're not there during summer holidays at Christmas. We need a way of young people don't like to be different. They don't like to stand out at school for a lot of things. And they really don't want the attention very often that might come with everybody in the school knowing what's happened and having to, speak to a teacher or whatever. But if there were another way of getting in touch with something like Winston's Wish, people who've been through the same experience as you, people who can say, I know what it's like, and just support you through it. Or maybe your parents can speak to if you've lost a sibling. That's the sort of thing that we want to make sure. It's not setting up an organisation, it's putting the ones who are already there in touch with the kids who need them. There's thousands of kids out there who need support, and there are organisations that want to help them, but they don't know how to get in touch with each other because they don't know where they are.